What's up guys, it's Weapon of Choice, the Omniblade here to give you guys a little video of sorts. Now, if you have been paying attention to any of the stuff I've been saying in the past few months or so, you know that I'm working towards my Fire Emblem Fates class analysis video, which I plan to have go up for Christmas. Well, before we get into that video, we've got a few days and I want to cover a few other things that I'm not necessarily going to cover in those videos. Just like as you can tell in the title of this video, I'm going to talk about Azura and Corrin because it doesn't really feel right for me to talk about them in the class analysis video. Simply because you get them both regardless of what game you play, so it makes sense for me to talk about them as their own separate entities. So, without further ado, let's get into the main protagonist of Fire Emblem Fates himself, Corrin. As the MU of this game, Corrin has nice balanced stats all around, which not all classes can have, that are complemented by even growths with almost all of them in the double digits. What's good is the fact that the only real flaws in these stats are the weaker magic and resistance, but this is okay during the early phases of the game. Corrin probably won't be getting 11 sword in the first 10 chapters, but should you decide to have your MU be a Robin clone, and have him/her start waving one of these badass swords around, Corrin's magic will have increased and this Nohrian heir will acquire more opportunities to utilize magic as the game progresses. As for the class's resistance, well, for the most part, the units you'll be battling will have physical weapons, and there won't be as many mages early on because that's just how these games work. Even so, this weaker resistance and slower growth is not crippling for Corrin, as there are other units which can help him or her in this area, since there's a nice balance of this stat amongst the classes. Speaking of balance, let's talk abilities. Noble Lineage offers a 20% experience boost for Corrin, so that the MU can be used more and is a good change from the brokenness that was Veteran. Continuing the trend of rebalanced abilities, Dragonfang is IMO, a rebalanced version of Ignis, which the player can get earlier than said ability. By lessening the trigger rate to 75% of the user's skill and not 100% like Ignis, and giving 150% damage output as opposed to half of the other offensive stats, Dragonfang really does feel like a good ability with slightly more power, a lower trigger rate, and a nice clutch factor. These abilities and stats allow the player to focus on using Corrin, yet it doesn't create a scenario where Corrin ends up like Robin and is potentially level 10 by the time you reach chapter 4. Anyways, Corrin in general feels like a revised version of Robin that is suited for Fates, but is just as competent given the nature of the game. If you decide to ally with the peace-seeking Hoshido, Corrin will gain access to the inferior of the two blood classes. The reason I say that the White Blood class is the inferior of the two promotions is because of how Fates divides itself. Now, keep in mind that Hoshido is a kingdom that is under attack. It is defending itself. This is something Iz has really focused on when creating a class that represents the peace-seeking Hoshido. This is a much more defensive class when compared to its Nohrian equivalent. Now, the reason this class is offensive is because the Hoshido don't necessarily need to win, they just need to defend. In the end, if they're all still standing after the battle is over, then the other side loses because they failed to stop the enemy. The White Blood has stats, abilities, and even another weapon that reflects this necessity of defense. So now that I'm done rambling, let's actually talk about this class. The growths in this class are the same as the Nohr royalty, but the resistance growth is now non-existent because the defense growth gobbled it up all for itself. Also, the additional use of stabs doesn't really add much to Corrin's potential, as he is more of a physically oriented unit. Corrin's other stats aren't even all that great. Sure, White Bloods have good strength and defense caps, and they do have a nice HP growth rate, but that's it. Even the abilities of the White Blood are pretty underwhelming. Draconic Shield is an ability that does not seem all that useful to me, as it does not even benefit Corrin directly. This ability halves the damage allies adjacent to Corrin take, and triggers at a rate equal to half of your luck stat. The reason this stat relies on luck is because Iz gave White Bloods bad skill. And while Corrin for some reason does have good luck, this is typically the least useful stat in the game, or the stat people usually gimp on their MU. But this ability does gain some more usefulness, as the second ability of White Blood's, Hoshido, an outright ripoff of Rightful King, grants the user 10% extra trigger rate to all of their skills. Yeah, it's literally the exact same ability from Awakening. I have no idea why they did that, but they did. But even with a luck asset and Hoshido, this ability will only have at best a 28% chance of triggering. Couple this with the fact that White Bloods don't have good weapons, as staves just are a waste of potential at worst and a backup at best, the White Blood class truly feels inferior to me. It seems that Corrin would be better as a support unit that is surrounded by more powerful allies on the Hoshido side, which is probably what is wanted given what I just rambled on about, but it's still disheartening to see the White Blood, the MU exclusive class of the Hoshido, take a back seat to the action. If you remain with the glory-seeking Nohr, you will be awarded with the more offensive of Corrin's promoted options. Upon close examination, the stat makeup of the Dark Blood somewhat resembles the Robin amiibo's stats, almost like a foil. Corrin will have balanced offensive stats, except he'll have an edge in strength, whereas Robin has a slight edge in magic. Robin has good skill and average speed, while Corrin has good speed and sadly subpar skill. Both protagonists do have mediocre defense, but good resistance though. But Robin trades a point of defense for extra resistance, so he's a bit weaker there. The stats are even out a bit more when compared to the White Blood, but the growths aren't. The skill, luck, and defense growths were nerfed, but the magic, speed, and resistance growths were buffed. The poor skill and defense might be a bit painful, but the strength and speed growths further complement this whole anti-Robin setup they have going. Now you're probably wondering, if the stats are less balanced in the Dark Blood class, are the abilities less balanced? The answer is a resounding yes! The abilities of the Dark Blood are much better than that of its counterpart. Draconic Curse is a fascinating ability as it allows for some useful setups. Draconic Curse reduces all of the enemy stats by 4 after triggering battle with them. Again, with the whole anti-Robin setup going, Robin had Rally Spectrum, which boosts all of his allies' stats by 4. Seriously, if you guys don't believe me with the whole Robin Corrin foil thing, I'm pretty sure that cements it right there. Regardless, Corrin can attack with a tome from afar, weaken the enemy, and then a unit that needs levels can attack the cursed enemy, get the kill, and reap the much needed experience. The second ability, Nohr, seems to offer vast amounts of potential as Corrin can have a bigger skill pool. Well, at first this seems really stupid, as you might be thinking, well, he's the MU. He has all the classes, right? Wrong! Corrin isn't like Robin in the sense that Robin did have access to all the classes at his disposal in Awakening. Corrin only has 2, like every other unit in the game, but you do get to pick the second class during customization, so choose wisely. One should also keep in mind that when choosing the Nohr campaign, you don't have any side missions you can grind on. This means that there are limited options in Nohr since you can't grind in Conquest unless you have DLC. But Dark Blood Corrin can Maverick unlike White Blood Corrin because Nohr grants the user access to the abilities that the user's paired ally has. Let's talk about singers now, or the dancer replacement to this game. Given that Awakening and Radiant Dawn are the only Fire Emblem games that I've played thus far, my experience with dancers is very limited. Dancers can grant an ally an extra opportunity to move, and while this sounds useful, dancers are incredibly frail and are made of paper. Again, since I've only got 2 FE games under my belt, Olivia is the only actual dancer I've ever seen because in Radiant Dawn, you have the Heron as your dancer replacement, and they function kind of differently. Alright, so let's focus on Olivia then, and how she wasn't a bad unit per se. Okay, Olivia as a unit is a good mother for Inigo, and has access to amazing skills, and even has good growths. However, as a dancer, the only thing I got from Olivia was eye candy. Now, while Azura is also easy on the eyes, this class has by far some of the worst stat caps I've ever seen. At first glance, you'd think Azura has no purpose other than being a unit who is a lance-wielding dancer to be used for the plot, and you'd be absolutely right for thinking that. While the singer harbors non-existent HP, defense, and resistance growth rates, it does offer good skill, speed, and luck growths, and Azura's abilities offer quite a few benefits. While her abilities of Luck plus 4, Special Song, Interpersonal Skill, Healing Voice, which heals 10% to all allies in a 2-square radius when she sings, adds small bonuses, her other abilities, Voice of Peace and Heathen Princess, cause stat reductions to the enemy and decent buffs to her allies. Here's the quick and dirty for each of her abilities. Luck plus 4 is self-explanatory. Special Song grants a skill, speed, and luck boost of +3 to anyone who receives Azura's Song. Voice of Peace reduces enemy damage in a 2-tile radius by 2. Heathen Princess does the same thing, but also adds a 2 extra damage debuff to all enemies within the same radius. With these last 2 abilities combined, nearby enemies will deal 4 less damage and receive 2 extra damage. These buffs and debuffs may seem small on their own, but with Azura as a support unit paired with, say, Corrin, who decided to, I don't know, maverick their way through the enemy ranks, these abilities could save him or her from dying. If Corrin becomes surrounded and has some archers/mages attack him, the abilities of this single class seem to offer fantastic support and could make Azura a pivotal unit in certain situations, but all in all, the class itself isn't all that great. Well, that's all there is to talk about regarding Azura and Corrin in Fire Emblem Fates. I hope I kept you all entertained during the duration of this video, and I hope to see you guys next time when I talk about all the classes in Fire Emblem Fates. But until then, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and until next time guys, I'm out of here.